Hello students, in this class we will discuss about floodplains and floods. For the past few days we have been watching heavy rainfall. For this reason we hear the sensational news on television, that is Godavari floods. Because of these floods, people lost their properties, buildings and assets. And what is flood? Flood. It is an overflow of a large amount of the water beyond its normal limits, especially over what is the normal dryland. Floodplains. Throughout the year, the river does not have the same amount of the water. Generally, in the rainy season, the river may be full, and usually in the summer season, the river may shrink. For some rivers, the trough is very wide and they have high banks. On those banks, the sand and gravel are deposited and are formed as valleys. In the middle of the valleys, the river flows as a small stream. No trees are available to the sides of the streams because every year this will be the filled with the water. This portion will be filled with water, huge amount of the water. So there is no chance for trees to grow up. So this reason, treeless bed, treeless portion or treeless field called the floodplain of the river. Generally, all the major rivers have their floodplains. In recent years, floods have become a major problems of our country, of our state. Actually, how the floods occurring? We already know one thing, that is rain is the main source of the water. Due to the overflow of the rainwater, floods will occur. During the rainy season, some parts of the country will occurring the floods. Floods cause severe damage to people, crops, livestock, and properties. At the same time, people lost their properties, buildings, houses, and assets. Here, the one thing vegetation, trees, plants, grass, etc. These are kind of vegetation. Vegetation prevents the overflow of your rainwater and it decreases the flow speed of rainwater, and that helps the rainwater to penetrate into the soil. Generally, floods are caused by a sudden increase in the volume of water reaching a river. This can be prevented by vegetation for the reason that is prevents sudden flooding and makes the water to flow slowly into the river. It also helps to increase the amount of the water which goes into the soil, and also vegetation reduces the erosion of the soil. Erosion means the soil is washed away. Most of the land part, the outermost land part was cuts with water. The rainwater cuts and carries a lot of topsoil with it if there is no vegetation. The carried topsoil is deposited on the riverbed, which decreases the depth of the river. Facing the challenges in cyclones and floods. In our Andhra Pradesh, it has a long coastal line, coastal areas. That's why AP Andhra Pradesh faces regularly extreme cyclones. When heavy winds blow from the sea, heavy rains lash the lands, and heavy waves make the sea very unsafe. Cyclones have a chance to occur in between the months of June and December. In previously, India faced most of the worst cyclones. In that time, people severely damaged and people affected by physically and economically. And also in that time, hundreds of the dead bodies were hundreds of the dead bodies were floating on the water, and also most of the buildings are collapsed. These are the destructions of cyclones and floods. Let us learn about floods and cyclones in more detail. In the sea coast, there will be a numerous huts that belongs to fishers and laborers. And usually the lowlands of the towns and villages which get flood are occupied by the slums of the poor. When the floods or cyclones occur, automatically the flood water mix with drinking water, which gets the polluted and unsafe for drinking. Drinking this polluted water, the poor people contract several diseases like cholera, dysentery, jaundice, etc. And also some major effects, that is after cyclones, roads will be damaged. It is very difficult to help the worst affected areas. Because of cyclones, loss of lives, crops, properties, house, etc.